Hello and welcome to Coach's Conversation Café. I'm Keith Rodriguez, your host, and as always, I have my trusted confidant with me, Adam Valencia. Welcome, Adam.
Good afternoon.
And we have a very exciting guest on today. We're happy to have him, and he is the program director for the Visalia Youth Services here in Visalia, Ivan Rodriguez. Welcome, Ivan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and good to say hello to both of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Youth Services and your position does, Ivan, and how you got there?
Okay, so I'll break down the first part. So Visalia Youth Services is a children's mental health provider. We serve children, youth, and their families here in the Visalia area and the surrounding community. We provide mental health services, which can involve therapy, family therapy, groups, medical services, things of that nature.
Awesome.
So tell us a little bit about some of the goals for your clients that you're serving. I know that you have many students and families that you're serving throughout all of Visalia, but I also know, Ivan, that the work that you've been doing doesn't go unrecognized. I mean, gosh, you're involved in all of Tulare County, and it's a big deal. I mean, for us and the work that we're doing together alongside with Coach Keith Rodriguez, and then the fact that you're able to put some things together. So again, we appreciate you being on, but I know that you're doing a lot for clients, not just clients, students, but also their families. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me add a little bit more background to who we're serving, how many people we're serving. So actually on any given day, we're serving over 1,000 families. We're receiving between 150 to close to 200 referrals a month. And we're opening, anywhere between 85 to 150 cases a month. In fact, this past March, we just opened about close to 130 cases. And so it really exemplifies the need for mental health services in our community. I did want to add, we are a contracted agency, right? So VYS is part of Turning Point in Central California. You can see the logo right behind me. Mm-hmm. And we're contracted with Tulare County, right? So Tulare County Health and Human Services, right? Specifically their mental health branch. And so we're responsible for providing services in Visalia and the local communities here in terms of providing mental health services. So appreciation and thanks to both Tulare County and Turning Point in Central California for that. So you had other questions in terms of what our goals are and what have you. I just wanted to start briefly with our mission statement, right? Our mission statement is really taken from Turning Point, which is to help those in need. And so when it comes to mental health, right, we have a niche in terms of providing services around the mental health community. And I just wanted to share a little bit that our CEO, who, by the way, played football here locally, Redwood High School.
All right.
But he shared something that stuck with me in terms of our goals. Our goal is to promote positive results and the legacy that we strive for in the lives of clients and families for those we serve in the communities in which we live and serve. And as you know, I live in Visalia and serving as program director, not just for this community, but technically my neighborhood, because I grew up just up the street here. and so we adapted that statement from our CEO to our program, where we said amongst our team here on site, said, we want to be a leader in mental health, and we want to make sure that that's reflected through innovation, enthusiasm, and dedication to the well-being of this community. That's our vision statement, right? But our mission is to make sure that we're providing Visalia with a mental health program, and this is really near and dear to my heart, as if it were for our very own children, right? Because the answer to that is because it is. And so that's what drives us. And so much of the work when it comes to outcomes and being successful, there's different metrics that we utilize to demonstrate success, but that's really what drives us. And so not to bore, the audience here with data and what have you, but that's it right there, keeping it really simple and meaningful.
Wow. Awesome work. That sounds great, Ivan. And I think it's important to note that you're not just the director, you're an officially licensed social clinical worker yourself. Is that correct?
Right. It's licensed clinical social worker. I'm in the field of education, and soon to be potentially considering another step, right? And you're wearing that hat here for me.
I'm wearing this for you. I'm glad you brought it up. I have my Fight On colors here. Why don't you share that exciting opportunity that you're pondering with all of our audience?
Yeah, it's really something that I'm considering, a decision near and dear to my heart. Primarily starts with my parents, the sacrifice they made to give me this opportunity, right, to serve in this role. I think I'm doing a good job so far of making them proud, but I'm looking to continue to climb that academic mountain, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so much of it is driven by the philosophy that we share amongst sports and athletics, to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can to maximize the opportunities that I've been given for my kids, right, and for myself as well. To make sure that I'm pushing those boundaries of what's possible within the field, and making sure that when it's all said and done, I can look back and say, I did everything I could to leave this community better than I found it. And that DSW, doctorate in social work, I applied here recently, and USC accepted me to their program. Now I have to look at the little details to make it happen. And but yeah, very, very exciting news for me. Mm-hmm. And so lots to consider there, but thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, Ivan, we're so proud of you, man. Just the fact that we've worked together for the last few years, but I've known you forever. We grew up together, and just so proud to say that you come out of Locust Street, near Buena Vista, right off of Court Street. So right. I'm really proud of you. I really am, from our end of it, and I know that you were very instrumental for a lot of the programming in terms of using one of our key programs, coping and support training. And again, our company is very thankful. We know that your agency has been the first in the nation to be providing what we refer to as the outside-in approach, where we're having an outside agency such as yourself going into our schools and providing a service. So I will say that, and I will mention that again, is that the fact that you've done that, and now we have many other agencies nationally that are really, really following that lead of yours. And so we certainly appreciate that from our standpoint. But if you could share a little bit about some of the work that you're doing, utilizing coping and support training.
Right. So you mentioned coping and support training to me a while back. And in the field of mental health, right, there's different intervention models that we want to incorporate. And, I won't get into too much details, but there's intervention models that we provide. I like to use two examples, doctors and automotive technicians as an example. And I'll get to Cass here in just a bit. And I use the automotive tech because my father was an automotive technician, still is, but also the medical field, because it helps reinforce how important it is to do things the right way. And so I'm referring to evidence-based practices. When we go in to see the doctor, let's say, look at you guys here in athletes, right? You guys have probably had some kind of surgery here at some point in your lives, right? Because of different injuries. When you go see that doctor, you want to see a doctor who is using a technique, let's say he's going to cut into your knee or what have you, that he's done over and over and over successfully, right? You don't want a doctor who says, I'm going to try something new here. I'm thinking this will work, right? You want to go to the one who uses an evidence-based model that was taught at medical school, that we know works effectively, that maybe has some data, has some data behind it that says, if you do this surgery this way, your recovery time will be, 6 to 8 months, and gives you that type of information, right? Same with the automotive side of things. You take your vehicle, there's a certain process on how they're supposed to fix the vehicle. They get training on that. And if they stick to it, it should be very efficient, and the problem should get fixed. And so in mental health, we have these evidence-based strategies, that practices, things like cognitive behavior therapy, trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, EMDR, etc. And DBT is another one that I like to utilize here within our programming, PCIT. But coping and support training has a lot of that evidence-based backing. Developed the Washington University, right? The Huskies have a robust program around behavioral health. And CAS came about from educators from that program. And for whatever reason, Adam and I have had this discussion. It was kind of stuck only in the school settings. And so Adam mentioned it to me, by the way, years ago. And then we finally kind of made the time, came together about 2-3 years ago. And I saw the process and I thought how simple it was, how effective it was, how meaningful it was. And so I was sold, and the challenge then was just to incorporate it in our program. And I mentioned our CEO earlier, but whenever we make decisions, we go up that chain, and they trusted our clinicians, myself, to be able to implement it. And since having done that, it's been such an effective tool. It's become one of our primary tools with our practitioners. And I shared it with others, whether it's our school partners, mental health partners, and they saw the same benefits that I saw in its application. And since then, we've been utilizing it here with our youth.
So, here on the show, Adam and myself, we like to call attention to some of the pain points or the struggles that some of our guests have with whatever, a field that they're in. That way, if we can assist in any way or call attention to it, it helps. So in your case, what are some of your pain points or challenges that you guys face there?
You know what? There's some challenges, and I think my perspective, I have to go back and acknowledge some of those, because oftentimes I look at some challenges and I focus on solutions and how we're gonna resolve those challenges, right? But there's a gamut of them. But for now, I'll focus on, perhaps especially for the audience here, we're talking to hopefully coaches, right? Male and female who maybe have the same mindset, right? Whatever the challenge is, we're going to work right through it. And so the one that I'll address in our field is really, hopefully everyone's heard about this, but it's stigma. It's stigma in mental health. It's the reasons we won't get help when we need help, right? Stigma being sometimes interpreted as weakness. You're weak if you get help, if you talk about your feelings, if you acknowledge those challenges, right? That are barriers for some. And then we'll code them and call them something else, right? And so oftentimes we let stigma essentially trickle down into other parts of our community, our culture, and people won't get help because of that, right? So that's probably, just in my opinion, one of the biggest challenges in my field, right, of mental health, and just getting that help. Of course, there's other barriers as well. How do we get the word out about resources like our program? And I'll give an example. Both Adam and I grew up literally half a mile away from this program, right? If I walk to home where I grew up, it'll take me about 10 minutes, just walking there. And played basketball just across the street here at the Whitman Center. My first job ever as a 14-year-old was literally across the street from Visalia Youth Services for Education and Employment. Give them a shout out. And yet I'd never heard about Visalia Youth Services until I was 25 years old looking for a job. And that sticks with me, right? Because now the challenge is, how do I increase awareness about this program? And I'll share a little bit about another challenge that connects to it. But how do we share about these programs for kids like Adam and I? And we've had this conversation to give them the opportunity, right, to have success in their lives, to engage their family in some of the resources that would help, instead of ignoring it. And as you know, so many of the kids that we grew up with following another path that leads to aggression, to violence, to negative consequences, whether it's prison, death, alcohol issues, addiction, and not addressing some of those things that largely are preventable, right? So that's a huge challenge in and of itself, right? Increasing that awareness.
I think too that a lot of our teachers, as students are transitioning back to campus, and this is something that Keith and I, we talk about all the time outside of this show. But we're always trying to figure out ways how we can support our educators. Our educators
Sure.
are on the front lines. They're getting ready to go back. Many of the schools have started already.
Right.
Already going into probably week 3, I believe.
Yes.
And you know this as well because you have 2 children in some of our schools here locally. But I was wondering, what kind of support services could you provide for some of the teachers, or maybe there's information on your website,
Sure.
just something that we can give to our teachers, because I've been to your office. I know the work that you're doing. It's just, to me, you're like really the best kept secret. And during this particular time, I'm thinking we need you more than ever to continue to do the work that you're doing. But I want to share that with our educators so they know that they have resources and they have an expert in the field that understands and that reflects the majority of our demographics here in Visalia.
I am laughing a little bit only because I remember you saying that the first time you came around here, maybe 2-3 years ago, right? About 3 years ago, I think. And that stuck with me. And I think that inner competitiveness, right? In terms of saying, wait, did Adam just say we're the best kept secret while I've been working on, increasing awareness? So I almost took that as a challenge, right? And so I started doing more about awareness and putting myself, our program out there in different ways. And so what I would say is, as far as educators, it's really about awareness as well, right? Knowing that we're available and then utilizing some of our resources. So I'll share this. Now, I'm not sharing my screen right now, nor will I do that here in impromptu, but I just wanted to share. Yes, we have our website, tpocc.org/VYS. We have a robust website, been working on increasing both messaging and our resources. And so on that website, there's access to all of Turning Point resources. There's access to various resources within Tulare County, including every single provider across Tulare County is on our website. So if somebody visited our website, they will have every single clinic and phone number and contact information to not just providers, but other resources. And so that's one way to do it. We're also on Facebook. And so we try to make sure that we're active on Facebook, forwarding information about our partners. So like right now, there's so much going around with the vaccination, right, and awareness, making sure that families, both English and Spanish speakers, know where to get vaccinated, where to get information. So we work with our partners, namely Tulare County and Public Health and other partners, to promote that, right? And so that's another way. On our website, I almost forgot about this. We like to innovate, and a few years ago, Mental Health Awareness Month, so May 2019, we're about to reach the 2-year anniversary of the day when we did this. We launched an online portal. To my knowledge, we were the first in the county to do that. And in March, we just celebrated over 1,000 online referrals, in addition to all the other referrals that we process, right? So it's a huge milestone for us. But anyone who goes to our website can actually access the online portal, initiate services, and get a response from my team within minutes, certainly before the end of the day. And so we're really good about that. It's driven by, again, our desire to make sure we're serving the community, as I shared earlier, and along the lines of our mission statement. There's more. I have a flyer that I'll share with you guys afterwards. And that flyer will be found on our website as well, just to make sure that people know about us. And lastly, we put ourselves out there. We have, the last 2 years, we've held virtual open houses. It was a little scary when we first did it in May, right, of last year. We were all figuring out the Zoom platforms or what have you. And so this coming year, we're doing that as well. I think it's March 13th. I'm sorry, May 13th. I'll give you just to confirm.
Great.
So Thursday, May 13th, 3 to 5 is our scheduled, our virtual open house. I actually welcome coaches, right, to come in and see what we're about and meet our staff and know that mental health isn't this scary thing that we need to avoid, right? And so we're opening our doors to the community, not just to any particular group or what have you, but just to the community, and really want to get the word out there to, again, for our community, learn about their local mental health program.
Yeah, that's great, Ivan. I know that I wanted to say this last question, but I'm going to hand it over to Keith on this one because I know how much he loves coaching, and him and I have been coaching for many years, and I wanted to pass it on to him because I know that we've been wanting to know how you're able to tie in your football background into the work that you're doing. So I'm going to pass it over to Keith on this one. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I mean, let's change gears and let's talk about meshing some of the work professionally that you do, social and emotional, and how that ties into to coaching and how you
Right.
and utilize those two, and also you could talk about how you're stealing some of my offensive routes. But go ahead.
Hey, I told you he'd be excited about that. He started moving his hands. He's ready to go.
Right. He likes to needle, right? That we're stealing his stuff. But
whiteboard.
It's funny that you mentioned mesh, right? Are we talking quarterback, running back mesh, or are we talking mesh air raid offense, right?
You're the guest, baby. Run with it.
Well, interestingly enough, from a coaching perspective, I just wanted to share shout out to the Mount Whitney High School program, Coach Nathan Chamberlain. We're trying to establish a culture here that lasts. That again, I believe I may be one of the very, very few licensed clinical social workers, children's mental health director, at least for this program, involved in any capacity, right, on the football field. And so that's something that I'm super proud of. And again, it's such a privilege to be part of any football related type activities, let alone a program like Mount Whitney High School with the legacy behind it, the tradition right at Mount Whitney. Both of my kids attend Mount Whitney. And so again, another layer of privilege to be able to do what I'm doing and helping my community, right, kids within my community, and help bridge, again, so much of what I bring to the table in terms of knowledge, experience, life experience. And so again, certainly a student of the game, that's my approach, to try to learn as much as possible. So, as coaches, we know that X's and O's are important, right? But there's so much more that goes into developing a football program and a culture. And so in my role, what really appealed to me is the developing of a culture, right? Because I am a program director. There's other layers up that chain of command. As I mentioned, a CEO, we might have a chief operation officer, a regional director. And so I draw the equivalent or analogies to say, like in football, we have owners, we have an ownership group, we have other individuals that are, vice president of football operations. Then you have your general managers. And so when it comes to operations, right, I'm that person that the analogy is a coach, where I have different parts that I have to look at within our program, and we want to be successful, right? I attended a local conference I think it was right before the pandemic, and a person from I can't remember his name right now, but it was a conference where he referenced the Washington football team, because he lives in the Washington area. And at the time, I think their coach had just been fired. And he referenced, I love this, he called on those that are in my roles. And he shared, if our jobs were being evaluated like a football coach, right? There's certain expectations, right? They're always to be successful, right? Translated in wins on the football field. But how do we demonstrate that we're being successful in our roles? And so that really stuck with me. I love that concept, right? Because we want to make sure that we're successful with all the things that we're doing. It's a great privilege, right, to be in these roles, but how do we demonstrate that we're being successful? And so there's certain metrics and things of that nature. And I already mentioned the use of evidence-based practices. But what really attracted me then when it comes to my role and drawing parallels is other coaches. And looking across the board at other organizations, and you guys all know this, USC's been a successful program, but currently in the landscape of sports, let's stick to football. The Patriots, right? Years and years, almost 20 years here of success. They lost their quarterback, so we knew that he was a big part of that recipe for success. Alabama football, right? They're a machine, and so we look at what are those things that we need to do, right? Or what can we learn from a Coach Saban, and other coaches as well. But I looked at that because, again, that's the analogy to my role. And so to put it into like the shortest definition I can, a lot of these people run their organizations off a model called high reliability organizations. And the organizations that I would say fall under that HRO model is hospitals, nuclear power plants, Navy, ships, where you can't afford to make mistakes. And some people might say, well, that's kind of extreme. Why would you compare mental health to nuclear power plants? But I'll tell you this much. The life of any child, right? The quality of life for them in the rest of their lives, what price would we put to that, right? And so again, when one of the other things that I do within this community is I serve as a member on the Suicide Prevention Task Force. And we deal with again, when we're not doing our job or when there's just other social issues out there that can impact the community with the suicide. Unfortunately, I've been a part of dealing with those situations in intervention and postvention. And so that's part of why we utilize that model. At least it appeals to me, right? Because we want to make sure we're perfect in what we do. And no one's ever going to be perfect, right? But we're striving for that, and we hope we land at least in excellence, right, in terms of the work that we're doing. But that's the best analogy that I can draw when it comes to sports and football. And my role, I'm trying to make sure that we lead a successful organization, and that I'm learning as much as possible from the way other successful organizations do their work and how they achieve that success. And it doesn't just stop there, right? I'm always looking for other opportunities. You have that USC hat on, right? And so whether I'm at coaches' clinics, when I'm there with, watching Coach Helton work with his staff and, those kinds of things, that also helps as well, right? But just across the board, that's the biggest analogy I can draw in terms of what I'm striving for.
That is great stuff, Ivan. We are here with the program director of Visalia Youth Services, Ivan Rodriguez, and Adam Valencia as well. We're coming near to the end of our show. We're limited on time, but I know Adam had something he wanted to get in, Ivan.
Sure.
No, just, again, we certainly appreciate everything you're doing with us in terms of our company. We appreciate your leadership, our local leadership, and continuing to do the great work. We're very proud of what Visalia Youth Services is doing and what you're providing. Again, the challenge a couple of years back about being the best kept secret was more of an opportunity, and to share with you that there are so many agencies and districts that need to know about what Visalia Youth Services is doing, because again, you're cutting edge. We talk about evidence-based practices. You're the very best in the business, and so we certainly appreciate our partnership.
Well, I appreciate those sentiments, and just to share with you what we've done with it. And you're right, it was an opportunity, but again, it's really about making sure that any family in this community knows who we are, can access us. But really excited to share. Had an opportunity to be on Univision with Lupita Lomelí, Despierta Valle Central, right, and do an interview in Spanish. I have another one coming up this week and another in a couple of weeks to talk about both suicide prevention and the other mental health awareness, right? So just another shout out there for that programming and increasing the awareness about mental health. And so I hope that the coaches that listen, take into account as we're getting ready for football, just take into account that yes, they might be driven to be successful on the field, but to take into account what those kids are going through, what they've gone through this last year. This isn't a normal year, right? In terms of us starting into football. And so much has to be taken into consideration to make sure that we're doing everything possible to help these kids and their families and hopefully have a successful season just across the board. We know playing football is a privilege. And again, just the reminder, right, as we're leading into May, Mental Health Awareness Month, to keep those things in mind and hopefully help normalize getting help when kids need that help, right? And hopefully that leads to more success for those kids, both on the field and off the field.
Right. Love it. Now, briefly, Ivan, as you know, most of our coaches, they're not licensed clinical social workers. Sure. So just quickly, if you could give them, now that they're going to be playing sports again across the board, what are some clues or hints that maybe coaches could just utilize to when their student athletes come back to them, that they might see that where a child or a student athlete is stressed or is having issues that they can maybe help them?
Great question. Now I want to say Keith, but I see Robert, so I'll go by Keith, right?
That's my birth certificate name. Yeah. Got many.
So just to keep it as simple as possible, because it's really about the obvious in some cases that we sometimes miss, and I'll be guilty as charged. Sometimes we miss those cues, but in teens, usually it's that irritability, right? And we see it manifested on the football field with defensiveness, bad mood, can certainly be a sign, especially if it's been in existence for a while, could be some mild symptoms of depression. Sometimes we associate stereotypes with depression as a person who's just locked in their room, shades, in, lights off, and they're just, doing nothing, right? Well, that's not the case with, certainly would be a case of severe depression, but being mindful, right, that some irritability, again, consistently for a certain amount of time would be potentially mild symptoms of depression. And we never want to diagnose anyone just based on what we're reading online or what I'm sharing here as well, right? We want to make sure that we're providing a comprehensive assessment, access to resources. But that's just one of them. And so consider that one of the challenges with depression in general is isolation. And we just finished, right? We're over a year of dealing with isolation, right? So all of us on some level, right, have been challenged with having to do something that we weren't used to. And so again, just being mindful that we're going to do something that's quote unquote normal, and yet not everybody is ready to make that adjustment in the same way, right? And so being mindful that we want to tailor our approach here with kids and treat them as unique individuals and connect with them, engage with them as much as possible, develop those relationships. But certainly that's part of it. Be important to check in with families as well, because families are the best source for knowing our kids. And so I know that time is of the essence here, and sometimes time is limited for coaches, but just checking in with families, seeing how those kiddos are doing would be important to get a little bit more information. The last thing that I wanted to mention, again, something that sometimes we might take for granted, but go back to when you were in high school and the kinds of things that we struggled with, right? Normal things that's hard to acknowledge or admit sometimes, but our own self-image, right? Our own self-esteem, often tied with our physical appearance, how we look or what have you. And if there's one thing that a lot of our kids have experienced here is they weren't working out, they weren't exercising, they weren't engaged with sport and activity, they weren't maintaining a regular schedule, going to school, and what have you. A lot of our kids are a little out of shape, if I'm underscoring it just a bit. A lot of adults, right, are out of shape. And so again, it may not be something that maybe comes to mind right off the bat, but just note that kids are going to be impacted by that, right? And so, that's another one of those challenges, along with just the academics, right? We know that a lot of kids struggled. So one of the things Adam and I were talking about prior to at least logging on was just, again, making sure we're prioritizing the academics of those kids, because it doesn't matter how much they exercise, how much they work out. If they're not eligible, they're not playing. And so at least academically eligible, right? And so that's a big consideration for coaches. So I hope that gives at least 3-4 points here for coaches to consider.
Yeah, no, great. Love it. I mean, what an answer, and such great information. And we're so happy and appreciative that of the work that you're doing there, Ivan, with Visalia Youth Services. And would you have any issue at all? I doubt it. If coaches, if they could just reach out to you with any questions or anything about student athletes or stress coping situations.
Absolutely. That's what we're doing with our program in general. At that point, when a coach calls me, I take off the coaching hat. And it's literally about our community and just helping others, right? The last thing we want to see is bad things happen within our community because we didn't get help or we didn't know. And so again, fully accessible, as I told you two earlier too, it doesn't matter the day, the time, just, contact me, let me know, and would love to help other coaches with making sure that our services, not just ours, right, but other services across the county. And if I don't know, like someone calls me from Fresno or something, we'll figure it out together and help create those lines of communication and avenue to utilize resources here like Visalia Youth Services.
Amazing show here with Ivan Rodriguez, the program director of Visalia Youth Services. We're out of time for now. Thank you again, Ivan, for joining us. On behalf of Adam Valencia, myself, and the entire show, thank you for being on. Love it. It was
Absolutely
great information. Appreciate it, Ivan. We'd love to have you back.
My privilege. Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And again, Visalia Youth Services, Turning Point, Central California, Tulare County Mental Health, and appreciate you guys for what you're doing, helping increase awareness beyond just the X's and O's in football. Thank you.
Yeah. And good luck at SC. Fight on, baby.
Fight on.